On behalf of Pur-Logic Solutions, I would like to welcome everyone who was able to join us for today's webinar showcasing Sage Inventory Advisor as part of our ongoing Get More from Your Sage 300 software series. We welcome today Russ and Tom from Sage Inventory Advisor. Just a quick note that we are recording today's webinar and we will be sending the recording in a follow-up email after the event. And we will also post it on our YouTube channel and on our website. Following today's webinar, we will make time for some Q&A. And now I will send it over to Russ.
All right, thank you very much, Angela. Let me share my screen. And we'll go ahead and get started. And hopefully you're seeing the first slide in my deck. And thanks again, Angela. Appreciate the opportunity to present to you and your team and your customers. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for your time and attention. As Angela mentioned, my name is Russ Groff, and I get the honor of managing channel partners like Pur-Logic in my role at NetStock. And I'm joined here by Tom Wilson, who is a product specialist for us, and he will conduct the actual product demo as part of our content today. But I'll kick us off with just kind of a foundation, if you will, on what Sage Inventory Advisor is all about and so forth. You see our email addresses there. Note that it's netstock.co is our URL, not .com. That's not a typo. So you may want to make note of that if you want to follow up directly with us going forward. And you may have figured out already, if you didn't already know, that NetStock is actually the company behind Sage Inventory Advisor. Right, so NetStock is who we work for. We're the publisher of the application, and we do all the implementation and support and training of the application as well. And let's see if we can proceed here. There we go. So a quick agenda for today. We'll just cover a little bit about what Sage Inventory Advisor is all about and the problem that we solve, and then what the customer benefits are for that. And then, as I mentioned, we'll quickly get into a product demo. I may want to advise you quickly that I've got a bit of a scratchy throat here this morning, so please bear with me. And I also wanted to make sure that I wish everybody a happy Valentine's Day today. Hopefully somebody you know shows you some love today. So let's talk about inventory love. So we know that any business that owns inventory, whether it's a manufacturing or distribution environment or retailing or e-tailing, we know that there are challenges with managing those inventory levels, and they've been that way forever, since the very first business with inventory ever existed. I guess maybe Marco Polo and the old Silk Road. And the challenge is that we all, especially today, often experience stockouts of our inventory, right? We run out of inventory of popular items for a number of different reasons. Today, the primary reason for that in our post-COVID or COVID supply chain world is that we have some real challenging supply environments out there and very challenging transportation environments, right? So it's very common, we experience it as consumers every day in the stores, and as businesses, we experience it every day as well, that we're having lots of stockouts. But at the same time, we probably also in our businesses have some significant excess of some items, or in some warehouse locations perhaps. And so we have both of these conditions that exist within our inventory. And it's really an issue of ordering properly, right? If we know what the environment is in our supply chain and how our suppliers can perform, and if we have a better handle on our demand for those items, we should be able to balance those. But today we're trying to do that with inadequate tools, typically either just standard ERP reports. Sage ERP produces maybe a reorder point, leveraging data that's in our master files like minimums and maximums and EOQs and so forth that may be out of date, leveraging lead time information on our suppliers that is no longer accurate. And so we end up spending a lot of time trying to figure that out, either adjusting those numbers, dumping that data into Excel, creating formulas and these massive spreadsheets, double checking, triple checking. The folks that are doing the buying and the ordering and managing of this oftentimes are spending time in the warehouse, recounting, putting out fires, trying to expedite orders for items that are getting low or that are already out of stock. So we just spend an awful lot of time in a very stressful situation trying to figure out what's the right level of inventory that we should have, and how much do I need to order, understanding all these variables. And one of the challenges is forecasting accuracy, right? We know that forecasts are at best a guess, but the better we can predict that future demand, the better our forecast accuracy, then the better chance we have of knowing what to order and when to order it, and managing those levels. So there's definitely, and I'm sure if you're in this environment, which is why you're on this call, you recognize these challenges, right? It's something that you've lived with every day for perhaps months and years, and it's not getting any better. It's, in fact, it's getting more challenging than ever in the volatile world that we live in. So Sage Inventory Advisor is an affordable cloud-based application, right, that integrates with your Sage ERP. We've already built the integration 11 years ago, 10 years ago. We've got hundreds of customers using it. In fact, across the entire NetStock environment, we have now close to 2,000 customers using this application around the world. We are a global company. When we built this application, we understood the nature of the problem, especially for small, medium-sized businesses that typically didn't have the tools, the resources in general to address the problem very effectively. The solutions that were out there were expensive or very hard to implement. And so you typically didn't use them, and you tried to leverage the best you could the data in your Sage ERP. But we know if we get this right, if we solve this problem that we just identified, we can do several things. One, we can decrease the amount of working capital that's invested in your inventory. So that excess stock that you do have that's sitting in the warehouse gathering dust is cash, right? Think of those as stacks of $1,000 bills just gathering dust, and what you could do with that cash if it were freed up. So if we give you visibility and tools and ability to manipulate that and solve that problem and free up that cash, you not only put the money in the bank, but now you can leverage that money to do other projects, hire more people, open new markets, do more product development, whatever it might be that you could do that's other profit generating activity with that cash, right? And at the same time, we actually also reduce carrying costs, because there are hard carrying costs on that excess inventory. You got to pay insurance on it, property tax perhaps, takes up space in the warehouse. You got to count it, has risk of being obsoleted or broken or stolen. So there's shrinkage issues. So there's all kinds of problems with having too much. But the bigger challenge today, as I mentioned, is really the stocking out issue, right? If we can solve that, if we can have inventory when it's demanded by our customer or by our production facilities, then we have the ability to improve customer service, increase sales, right, which drives more profit, keeps customers satisfied and retains them, keeps them around for the long haul. Because we know that if we stock out today, especially if our product is at all a commodity that can be found by other suppliers, there's not much loyalty left out there in the marketplace. So our customers will go elsewhere to purchase. And not only that, if they have a good experience with that alternate vendor, instead of buying from us, we have risk of losing that customer altogether. So it's very critical that we solve these problems for our customers and for our business. And again, if we give you a proper tool and get it set up and trained properly and so forth, as we are able to do, we're going to save a ton of time for those folks that are responsible for managing this function in the organization. They're going to be able to very quickly place an optimal purchase order, and Tom will demonstrate that for you here shortly. And then again, you can think about, what do I do with that spare time, with that extra time that I just found? And the real answer there is I can now spend that time doing higher value things for my business, for my company. I can now be having conversations with those suppliers and with my transportation vendors and staying in contact with them to make sure I understand exactly what's going on in my supply chain, what I can expect and when I can expect it. How I can make adjustments, maybe find alternative vendors and build those relationships, maybe find alternative ports to bring product into to improve my lead time performance and so forth. So there's a lot of higher value activities, and actually that are more fun and less stressful for those folks that are in that function in your company than messing with circular errors and spreadsheets, and again, putting out fires and running around getting yelled at by salespeople for running out of product and getting yelled at by the finance people for having too much inventory in the balance sheet. So there's just a huge value in getting this problem solved getting it right, and moving forward. And that's what we want to show you today. So the way that it works is really pretty simple from a technology standpoint. Again, we're a cloud application, and what we do is we've written scripts to extract the pertinent data from the Sage ERP that we need, and we schedule that to run every single night. So on a nightly basis, we're grabbing all the inventory, purchasing, sales history, all the pertinent data that we need. It's encrypted and compressed and sent up to us in our cloud environment, in a very secure environment. We focus very hard on all that security stuff, which is of course critical today. And so we grab that data, we unpack it, and we do all kinds of analytics against it, right? We think of us as a business intelligence tool geared towards inventory. So we're grabbing all that raw data, slicing and dicing, doing our metrics, running forecast algorithms, all kinds of things, and coming back to you now with actionable information. And it's available to you on demand in any browser. So any device, anytime, anywhere on demand, I can have access to a dashboard and all the related data underneath that dashboard that helps me identify where I have too much, where I don't have enough, and all the things that Tom is about to show you in the demo. And most importantly, a recommended order, what you need to purchase from which suppliers and what quantities and on what days to get you into a balanced environment within that inventory. So it's and then we push that data back out as an open purchase order, as which we'll talk about. So just very straightforward. Seems simple on the surface, but all the magic is really what we do once we get the data and do all of our analytics and present it back to you. That's where the power in the application is. And when we built this thing 10, 11 years ago, the four founders of the application, who had decades of experience in replenishment and inventory optimization, and knew there was this opportunity for small, medium-sized businesses to solve this problem, they said, okay, if that's our target market, if that's our typical user, let's really glean down all that domain experience and knowledge that we've developed over the years and really try to answer two key questions for our customers. And the first is, what needs my attention? Right? What's gone wrong in my inventory? So do a quick status check every day of every single item in every location and understand whether it's okay or not okay. If it's not okay, is it because I have too much or not enough, or I'm about to have too much or not enough? Is it because my suppliers aren't performing, or my forecasts are not accurate? Tell me what's gone wrong and bring that to my attention in kind of a management by exception sort of approach, and really help me understand that. And then secondly, based on that feedback, now what do I need to order, right? So this all leads to buying smarter and as a way of solving the problem and getting the right levels of inventory for you. So we're going to look at some things like product importance, where we classify every item, not only in value, a typical ABC analysis, but also those same items and rank them by speed of movement, high, medium, low. So now we really get an understanding of the nature of the items in our inventory, which then allows us to really develop service targets and metrics and policies and investment policies and levels that are specific to those different types of items, right? So I'm not painting all my items with the same broad brush. I can be very granular about how I want to manage those inventory items, and maybe even rationalize why I bother carrying some, or why I should maybe add some from my catalog that I'm currently drop shipping, et cetera. So I get all those analytics to be able to allow me to build better policies and then measure my performance against those. And of course, another key engine for all this is the forecasting engine within Sage Inventory Advisor, right? A bunch of really sophisticated algorithms that use a tournament method to see which is the best fit. We leverage that and then project future demand going forward, with, of course, the ability to amend and adjust as market conditions require, and we get feedback from our salespeople and so forth. So really trying to answer two key questions: what's gone wrong, and help me understand and prioritize which ones I need to focus on today, and then what do I need to order? And if we can do that, what we have seen across all those hundreds and thousands of customers that we've worked with over the years is we've seen a very significant improvement in our target fill rates, right? We're having less stockouts, so we're selling more and keeping our customers happy and retaining those customers. A significant reduction in excess inventory, 10 to 15% of items is not at all uncommon. And in fact, 20, 25, 30% is also not uncommon. So really have the ability to free up a lot of cash, save those carrying costs, and free up that space in the warehouse by reducing that excess inventory. and then at least a 50% reduction in time spent just trying to figure out what to order, right? And where do I have challenges that need to be addressed? And again, if we're freeing up that kind of time, then those folks can be doing some higher level and more significant value added for the business. So those are the results we see. I will now stop sharing. Tom, I'll turn this over to you to provide a product demo to show our users, our customer visitors here, how that works within the application.
Okay, Russ. Hey, thanks a lot. So, hey, everybody. So as Russ said, my name is Tom Wilson. So my pleasure to introduce you to the software today. I've pulled up a live instance of Sage Inventory Advisor. Now, it is already connected to a Sage ERP platform and uploaded all of the transactional data we need. And it has disconnected from Sage ERP. So I'm not touching Sage ERP. I'm just a browser user logged into a live instance of Inventory Advisor. And when you first log on, you do see what is called a dashboard. And a dashboard is a high-level summary of all of the inventory at this stocking location. Now, I'm logged on again to a live instance. I happen to be using Chrome, but I've shown this exact same screen on my iPhone, iPad, just depends on what device and browser is most convenient for you. But again, when you log on, you do see the dashboard. Now, you can have one or many stocking locations set up in your ERP. And if I hit my dashboard button in my demonstration instance, I actually have 4 stocking locations. Now, my Los Angeles is a standalone location. It stores inventory and it replenishes directly from suppliers. My Chicago location does the same thing, but in addition, it supports 2 remote branches. So my New York and Detroit branch, they store inventory. They do not replenish from suppliers, they replenish from the central warehouse. So all of the demand for all of the items at each of those 2 remote locations needs to pass up to the central warehouse, which will place optimized orders on the supplier and recommend transfers to the remote locations. So you can have independent locations, you can have dependent locations, but in my demo database, I have 4. But for illustration, we're going to pick on 1, and that's my Los Angeles location. And when I do, we are looking at the dashboard for all of the inventory in Los Angeles. And the idea of the dashboard is to answer that first question in that first green box on Russ's PowerPoint. Are there any items at this location that have issues or problems and need my attention? And it's laid out in several panels. The first panel is called Stock Holding, and it shows that right now you are carrying $10.3 million of inventory at your cost. The planning tool is recommending you should be carrying 4.7. Now, Inventory Advisor is highly scalable. We have customers with less than $100,000 of inventory planning with the tool. We've got customers with over 50 million. My demo database happens to have about 10, just to give you a feel for the scale. But right now you're carrying 10.3 against a recommendation of 4.7. That would be the optimal inventory. Given demand for all of the items at this location, given lead time from the suppliers, given the supplier performance, which is especially critical in the last 12 to 18 months with all the disruptions in the supply chain, that would be the optimal inventory to fulfill your demand. I can see how my inventory has been trending over time. There are 6 bars, and these can be displayed in days, weeks, or months. So I can see how my inventory has been trending over the last 6 days, the last 6 weeks, the last 6 months. I'm just going to leave it at months. And here's how your inventory has been trending in Los Angeles over the last 6 months. 6 months ago in yellow, the top of the yellow, the darker yellow, if I hover, you were carrying an actual inventory of $10.8 million 6 months ago. Against the bottom or lighter yellow, a recommendation of 5.5. So I can see my actual to recommended inventory, how it's been trending, in this case over the months, with red simply being the last time data was loaded from Sage, which typically was yesterday, at which time you were carrying 10.3 against a recommendation of 4.7. So with just a quick glance, I can see I've got quite a bit more inventory than the planning tool is recommending. In fact, if I slide over to the next panel, you have some excess stock at this location. And excess stock is defined as inventory above the maximum recommended stocking levels. And right now there are over 2,300 items in Los Angeles that are in excess. And just the value of that excess inventory is costing your business $3.6 million. And if I hover where it says full report, if I click there, I will get an online report showing me all 2,307 items in Los Angeles that are in excess. Now, the default of this sort is it's based on the value of the excess inventory in descending order, but I can change that. I can change the sort to any of these columns. I can scroll down and see this entire report. This one's kind of large. I can always export it to a spreadsheet. But what we're finding is more and more customers are doing more analysis online and using less reliance on a spreadsheet. But I can see the SKU. And where the SKU is green, I can drill into more detail. Give me just a second and I'll show you an example. Here's the item description as it was uploaded from Sage. But here's that item classification or importance that Russ was talking about. And this is an industry best practice. And that is, you want to pay more attention to the items that contribute more to your business, that turn fastest. You probably want to set more aggressive replenishment policies. So we're going to rank every item based on its value to your business as an A, B, or a C item. This one's a C. We're going to rank the same item based on its inventory turns as high, medium, or low. This one's a low. So this item is a C item and it's low turning, yet it happens to be one that's costing me the most in excess inventory. But I can see what's currently in stock according to your Sage ERP, what the cost is, what your current inventory value is. But for this item, Inventory Advisor has identified you have 299 units more than you need, and here's what it's costing you in excess inventory. So I can see the entire report. Maybe I don't want to look at 2,300 items, so I can come over to my filter. And for this report, maybe I want to pare it down. Maybe I want to filter it based on certain values. Maybe the excess inventory of a certain product from a certain supplier, or over here where it says group. That can be any field that you want to import from Sage. And this panel can be as big as you want. Here's just a few examples. Hey, maybe I want to look at the excess inventory of a certain product line. Maybe a certain product type. Maybe I just want to look at raw materials. Or maybe a certain buyer. Maybe I want to look at the excess inventory that a certain buyer is responsible for. So this can be any field that you want to filter on, but I can also filter on those classifications. Hey, I'm looking at a list of excess inventory. If I have some A items that are high turning, I'm probably not as concerned, they'll move. But what I'd really like to see is show me all of my C items that are low turning. Let's see what that list looks like, apply the filter. And it turns out that 602 items in Los Angeles are in excess and are C and low turning items. That might be a list I really want to focus on and start to burn down that excess inventory. So I can slice, filter, sort, but out of all those items back on my dashboard, we're simply trying to bring your attention to the top 5. These 5 items alone are costing you $260,000 in excess inventory. Almost 10% of your excess problem is not 2,300 items, it's these 5. So if you do nothing else on a daily or weekly basis, you might want to really keep your eye on these top 5 lists, because addressing those will have the biggest impact to your bottom line. But that's where you have too much inventory right now. Hey, I want to give you a heads up. Here are some orders in Sage. They could be work orders for manufactured items or assembled items or kits. It could be a purchase order for a supplied item. But right now there are 503 items on order in Los Angeles. And Inventory Advisor is predicting that when those orders arrive, they're going to add another 2.5 million to your excess inventory. This is a proactive heads up. These are items you might want to look at. You might want to take some action. Maybe you want to cancel or delay the order. In fact, let's look at one of those. Let's drill into an item, because I want to show you how Inventory Advisor is doing its analysis and how it's coming up with these recommendations. And let's look at this second one. Not sure what ST8128 is, but if I hover, I can see the item description that was imported from Sage. If I click on it, it's going to take me to the detail for this one item. Now, you may not need to see detail for any item on any given day, but if you do, it's there for every item. One click away, I can see the item, I can see the description, and I'm looking at how this item is currently sitting in my Los Angeles location. So the first thing we're going to do is show you what your current inventory is, which is literally data from Sage. And right now, according to Sage, you have 400. Now, this is an item that you might buy and resell. In a minute, I'll show you an item that you might make, and we'll explode that to determine the components you need to buy in advance. But this is an item you might buy and resell. And according to Sage, you have 479 units in stock in Los Angeles. You have 23 open sales orders that have not yet been fulfilled. And if I'd like some more information on those sales orders, I don't have to go look it up in ERP. I've got it right here. Here are the open sales orders for this item. And we're going to take that out of your stock on hand to show you what your available inventory is. Now, this particular item has another 555 units on purchase order, and they are on order with the Full Champ technology supplier. And if I'd like more information on any open purchase order, we've pulled that in as well. And here are all the open POs according to Sage, when they were placed and when they're expected to arrive. So I can see what my current inventory is. But the power of the planning tool is to recommend what your inventory should be. And we're going to look at that from two perspectives. One is the demand perspective, and the other is the supply perspective. So let's start with demand. Pretty hard to determine what my inventory should be unless I know the demand of it moving forward. So Inventory Advisor will automatically load the sales history for every item. Now, this particular item had 31 months of sales history in Sage, and that's represented graphically in blue. Well, as Russ said, we have a tournament or best fit method, because what that means is we're going to figure out, based on that sales history in blue, is which is the best forecasting method to predict future demand. And there are dozens of forecasting methods, and that's probably the hardest thing to do in a spreadsheet, is which forecasting method should you use? And what we hear time and again is most people just default to a simple moving average, which may not be the best forecast. So let me show you a little bit of our help. If you come down here, we're on a cloud service. If I hit my help button, it's going to take me to the NetStock support, who's the publisher of Inventory Advisor. I can see who's available and when I can get help. I can search on articles. And what I'm going to do is look up forecasting. And we're going to look at how does the application generate forecast? Because what I want to show you is, here's just a synopsis. We're going to look at the sales history, because we're going to determine which demand method is the best type to predict future demand. And we're going to see if there's no history, or if there is a young amount of sales history, we'll use a simple moving average. We're going to test to see if this is a slow moving item, because we have a forecast method for that. We're going to see if there is sporadic sales history. We're going to test to see if there's any peaks, valleys, spikes. Does it take place in a seasonal pattern? Is there any trending? Hey, in this case, there's no peak or valley, but it does seem to trend in a considerable direction. So we're going to see if there's a linear trend. And finally, if we can't find any trends, we have more of just a simple model. And so we're going to test. And based on that, we're going to pick the best method. And we're going to use it to create a computer-generated forecast for the next 12 months. We can also extend that to 24 months. In any event, you can go in, you can change that forecast. We're going to track, however, how is that forecast doing against actual sales? And if I come over to my forecast history, I can see just that. Here is the forecast that was created by Inventory Advisor. We can track it against sales, and we'll alert you to any item who's over or under forecasted. So a very robust forecast. Now, the next thing that Inventory Advisor is going to do is we're going to look at the supply side. How is this supplier doing delivering this item? And that has been especially critical in the last 12 to 18 months with challenges to the supply chain because of the pandemic. So what is the recommended amount? We call it a safety stock. What's the buffer? And the reason you want to establish a buffer for any item is things happen. Customers order more than you think. Suppliers don't always deliver on time or the right quantity. So we're going to set up a buffer, we call it a safety stock, to protect you from those realities or risks in the supplier channel. And we're going to look at where it says target fill rate. We're going to look at what is the fill rate, and we're going to tie that fill rate back to that item classification. Well, this item we're looking at is an A item that's high turning. So we're going to give it a much more aggressive target fill rate because this is such an important item. We're going to look at the lead time. How long does it take to get this item from this supplier? Well, this item takes 90 days. When I place a purchase order on this item from this supplier, it should arrive in 90 days. But does it? How has this supplier been doing? Have they been delivering on time? Because if they haven't, we should increase the recommended safety stock. So let's go get some more data from your Sage ERP, and let's pull it into our supplier performance tab. Does this supplier deliver on time? Do they deliver the right quantity? Well, I can see that graphically, or here are the actual transactions you've placed on this item from the supplier from your Sage. And it turns out that over the last, all the orders we placed, this supplier is doing pretty good. They're averaging 81 days against a recommended lead time of 90. So they're doing pretty good. What we're seeing a lot of, though, is that's not the case. Recently, we're seeing that a lot of suppliers are delivering much later than their stated lead time. But what we can do is, by measuring the performance of the supplier, we can increase or decrease the safety stock accordingly. And this item, we're recommending 25 days. Well, what does that mean? Again, what we're trying to do is recommend what your inventory stocking levels should be and when you need to place orders. And in this case, we know our lead time is 90 days. We got that information from Sage. But how many units do you need to cover that 90 days of lead time? Well, it depends on my forecast in yellow. So based on that forecast, you need 200 units to cover 90 days of lead time. You need 55 units to cover 25 days of safety stock. So now in units, driven off that forecast, here is your recommended minimum stocking level, your recommended reorder point, and your recommended maximum stocking level. Any inventory above that is going to be excess. You can get it within lead time. You've got more than you need. But for every item, the fundamentals of Inventory Advisor are we going to generate a forecast that you can adjust or edit. We're going to recommend a safety stock based on actual supplier performance risk factors. We're going to then transpose that into units to give you a min, a reorder point, and a max. And we'll do that for every item at every location every day. And then we're going to compare it to what your current inventory is. Well, right now you're at 456, putting you in an excess position, which is a problem. But you have another problem. You're in an excess position with another 555 on order that's going to exacerbate your excess problem. So the first red flag that Inventory Advisor is bringing to your attention is, hey, heads up, you've got some orders you don't need. You might want to consider canceling or delaying them. And that is why this item was brought to your attention on the dashboard under the surplus order panel. So the first two panels are bringing to your attention, where do you have too much inventory? Now, right below that is the opposite. Are there any items you don't have enough of? And in fact, there's some items in Los Angeles that you're completely out of. According to Sage, there are 967 items with zero inventory. But there's demand on those items. You can't fulfill that demand until you replenish. And until you do, you could be at risk of losing some sales. And it could add up to 669,000. Doesn't mean you're going to lose a sale, but you're at risk until you replenish. Again, I can look at all 967, but again, here are the top 5. These 5 items alone are putting you at risk of 236,000 in excess inventory. Almost a third of this problem is not 967 items, it's these 5. So again, these are the 5 we recommend you pay attention to, drill down, get some information. You might want to make some proactive decisions. Maybe in an emergency, you might want to airship some items to relieve the problem. So here's some heads up. It's going to take your attention. You might want to look at them. And then finally, in the next panel, heads up, here's some items you're about to run out of. You have some inventory in stock, but heads up, you're probably going to run out before you can replenish. So the dashboard is, again, addressing that first green box from the PowerPoint. Are there any items that stand out with issues or problems that need your attention and might need some proactive action on your part? And we're listing them in the priority, the impact to your business. Now, let me show you one other item. And this item's not on the dashboard, but I want to go look it up. And this item is ST9501. And the reason I want to show you this item is a raw material. And if you notice, it has 2 demand streams. Because this is a raw material, it can be a replacement part. So you can sell it standalone. So it has its own sales history blue and its own forecast on the bottom dark yellow. And that was based on a linear trend. And that's what we call the independent demand, when this item sells independently as its own sales item. But this item, if you notice above, also has a above or lighter yellow. And that is what we call the dependent demand, because the demand for this item also depends on the demand for the finished goods it goes into, because it's a part that goes into a kit or an assembled or finished good. So because we load the bill of material file, ST9501 was flagged as being part of a BOM. And when I click on it, it shows the world through the lens of ST9501. It is a raw material that goes into these 3 finished goods. So how much of this raw material to have in stock depends on the demand for each of those finished goods at its bill of material ratio back down to this item. So we're going to generate a forecast at each of the finished goods level. We're going to explode it through the bill of material. And we're not just doing it at a simple level. We're doing it across your full multi-indented BOM structure. But the question is, how much of this one item do we need? Well, it depends on the demand for the finished goods that it goes into. And that is the upper yellow. The bottom yellow is its independent demand. So we have a total aggregate demand for all of the uses of this item. And then the logic's the same. We're going to show you the recommended safety stock, calculate a min, a reorder point, and a max. And then the logic is the same as before. So we can handle an item that you buy and resell. We'll generate a forecast of a finished good, explode it through a BOM, so that we can determine the impact at all of the multi-indented BOM levels that are driven off that finished good demand. So that's the first green box. Where do I have problems? But that second green box was, hey, show me everything I need to buy. And because we're recommending a reorder point, we're going to be able to show you any item that has gone below its reorder point. And with one click on my orders button, show me every item that I need to order for my Los Angeles location, and I can toggle and plan for any of my other locations as well, but we'll pick on Los Angeles. Show me every item in Los Angeles that's gone below its reorder point, broken out by supplier. And here's the list. This is a list of every item that has gone below its reorder point. So for instance, the Consolidated Tire Company. It is a supplier, and Inventory Advisor is recommending that you place 8 items on order. You may order 20 things from that supplier, but today 8 have gone below its reorder point. And that's what this 1 means where it says look forward. That means, and the default is 1, which means today. Show me what has gone below the reorder point for this supplier today. 8 items. Here's the units. Here's what it'll cost based on your cost. And here's the cubic feet and weight. And if we pull that in from your item master in Sage, we'll add that up, which might be helpful if I'm trying to fill up a truck or a container. And that's where this look forward really can come into play. Let's say I'm trying to get to a cubic feet or weight volume to fill up a truck, and this didn't get me there. And that's what we're showing you up here on this one with the Allion manufacturing. Right now, we're saying, don't show me what has gone below its reorder point today. Show me anything that's going to go below its reorder point for the next 14 days. And I can see what that is. But let's say I'm trying to get to a cubic feet of $7,500 or 7,500 cubic feet to get me to a container load. Well, that didn't get me there. So let's look out over a longer horizon. Show me what I need to order for the next 31 days. And we increased the units. We're still only looking at 1 item, but I didn't get to my cubic feet. So let's look out over a longer horizon. Let's look out over 61 days. And when I tab out, boom, I've now picked up a few more items, but a much larger order that's filling up a larger cubic feet. And so now I'm at that container level. So by looking out over a longer horizon, don't show me what I need to order today, but show me over an extended horizon so that I can see any item that's gone below its reorder point over that, so I can try to in this case, fill up a truck or a container. So, well, it's very helpful in that regard. But back to that first one. Let's look at what we want to order today. Well, I may want to look at those 8 items. I may want to change it a little bit. But as a purchasing manager, this is a supplier. If I want to look at those 8 items, all I have to do is select the supplier. Let's go look at the recommended order. Now, I have not created an order yet, but this is the recommended order for Consolidated Tire for my Los Angeles stocking location. Here is that same summary, units, cost, weight. But for each one of these 8 items, I will be able to see a summary of that item's detail. I can see the forecast. I can see my lead time, my safety stock, what's already on hand, what's already on order. This is a B item that is medium turning. Inventory Advisor is recommending that you order 500 units. Well, actually, that's not true. Inventory Advisor is recommending that you order 113 units. That would be the optimal order to keep your inventory at the right level. But you have a minimum order quantity rule set up in Sage, and we've honored that. And you can't order less than 500, so that's what we're recommending. And at $5.37, this will add up to $2,687. And with a lead time of 90 days, you can expect this to arrive in May. Now, if that isn't enough information to validate the recommendation to place 500 on order, I can always drill into the detail from here. I can even do it in a new window. So I've drilled into this item. I've got to that same detail screen, but I got here from the order recommendation panel. And I can see the item, its description. I can see what its current stocking is. I can see my stocking levels from Sage. I can see my forecast, the calculated forecast. I can change that. I can see my recommended safety stock. I can see my associated min, reorder point max. I can see any open, but if this is part of a bill of material, I can see the bill of material structure. I can see any open sales orders. I can see my supplier performance and the measured lead time of all the orders we've placed on that supplier. I can see any open POs. And based on all of that, you know what? I completely disagree with 500. I just got off the phone with this supplier, and they're not going to be making this item for a couple of months because of COVID. So based on that knowledge that I have, I'm going to go back to my order schedule, and I'm going to bump this item up. I'm going to bump it up by 50 units, and I'm going to tab out. And I just added 50 units. I just added $269, and this is what the order would look like if I placed it now. And I can continue to review each of the items that Inventory Advisor is recommending, drilling into detail if I need it, making adjustments if I want to. In fact, I can even go in and add other items. These are the 8 items that have gone below its reorder point. But let's say I do want to add some other items, and I can come in, and this is going to show me a list of all the other items I order from this supplier. And right now, Inventory Advisor is not recommending that you order these items, but I could certainly add them. And I could do some research before I add them. I could look at maybe I only want to look at A items or high turning items. I can see what's already in stock. I can drill into some detail. Or if, again, another place, if I'm trying to fill up a truck or a container, I could say, hey, Inventory Advisor, help me out. If I'm trying to get to a certain unit, cost, volume, or weight goal, just like we did with that look forward, give me some recommendations on what's available if I'm going to add some items. So I could also add some items here if I'm trying to round up or top off an order. But I can continue to review each of the items that Inventory Advisor is recommending, drilling into detail if I need it, making adjustments if I want to. But when I'm ready to place an order, I still have to execute a purchase order in Sage. All of the rules, procedures, workflows, approval processes of that order in Sage will still apply. But I don't have to go type this in. Inventory Advisor has recommended what to order and when to order. I can make adjustments based on my knowledge and expertise. But instead of going and typing that in as a PO, all I have to do is hit the download button. And that will immediately trigger a download, which will trigger a input into the purchase order module of Sage. Now, you will still need to execute that PO. As I said, any rules, procedures, workflows, approval processes will still apply in PO, but you're making your decisions on what to stock, what to order, driven off the analytics of Inventory Advisor, but together with your knowledge and expertise to fine-tune that, and then you will automatically send those as instructions via a file, export and import into the purchase order module, where you'll release it as a PO in Sage. And what you'll start to see as you use this planning tool is you'll start to see your inventory trend towards the model. As you manage your excess stock and catch excess items before they happen, you'll start to see excess reduce. as you catch stockouts before they happen, place optimal orders, you'll start to see your stockouts reduce. And if you can reduce stockouts and improve customer service and sales, if you can eliminate excess inventory and free up all that working capital that Russ described, and if you can give planners, purchasing managers, executives better, more timely information. So you're spending your valuable time not extracting data, not running and maintaining spreadsheets, not finding problems, but being presented with problems that need your attention in a prioritized manner, being presented with optimal order recommendations so that you can review, fine-tune them, and then send them back to Sage for execution. If you can address any or all three of those areas, the return on investment against a monthly subscription for this planning tool can just be off the charts. So Angela, Mo, Russ, that's kind of all I wanted to cover. So let me stop there and hand it back to you. Glad to field any questions and or anything else anybody might want to see.
Okay, if anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat box. We do have one that was sent to us earlier. It is, do POs automatically get created in Sage 300?
So POs get automatically recommended in Inventory Advisor. So the process I just went through, where you will go to that order schedule and you will see all of the recommended orders recommended by Inventory Advisor broken out by supplier. You will always have the ability to review those recommendations, edit it, fine tune it based on knowledge that you have. But then you will then hit that download button, which is a manual process, but you want that because you want to review the recommendations. And once I hit that download button, though, then they will be imported automatically into the PO module where you'll execute a PO still.
Okay, and we do have another question. This one's regarding support. Do you receive a dedicated person or team to reach out to every time you have a question?
So the support for Inventory Advisor is delivered by the NetStock team. Now, you don't have a dedicated person per se. So during the actual implementation, you have a dedicated team that'll work through the entire onboarding process with you. So that is a team that you can know and get to know, and you will work with agreed upon steps and milestones. But once you're live, it's not a assigned person. You have access to the entire NetStock team. And the easiest way to get a hold of them is this button in the bottom right corner. You can also call or email, but you will be helped with, it's a 24/5. And so we've got people all over the world. So depending on the nature of the question, the time of the question, we will try to assign the person that's in the best position to help.
Excellent, thank you. And one more question. What version of Sage is SIA compatible with?
Oh, sure, great question. So remember that the slide that Russ showed where the cloud delivered application of Inventory Advisor connected to Sage. First of all, it connects to 4 ERP platforms within Sage. So Sage 100, 300, 500, and X3. And it does go back quite a bit of ways from a version. So for Sage 100, it goes all the way back to 4.3. For 300, it goes back to 5.4. For X3, it's 5.5. And for Sage 500, it's 7.4. So it goes back quite a ways. So we can certainly connect to an older version of your Sage if that's what you're running. But the beauty of it is, even if you're on an older version and down the road you upgrade to a newer version, that does not impact Inventory Advisor. You just need to let us know that you've upgraded your Sage to a newer version. We will make a change to the Inventory Advisor data just to tell it what version of Sage it's talking to, and then we're off and running. Takes about 10 minutes. So this literally has no impact to Sage at all, the performance of Sage, nor does it impact your ability to upgrade. It's completely independent.
And we stay current with the current releases very quickly.
Excellent. I don't see any more questions in the question box. If there are any more questions, please feel free to reach out to us, or if you would like to book a more in-depth demo, you can do that with us as well. You will once again be receiving a copy of this recording shortly after the webinar. And we want to thank both Russ and Tom for this wonderful webinar today. And thank you everyone for attending.
Well,
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Angela. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.